Alright, so today's video, I'm going to show you how to set up a neck, a collar, and a torso. So this is from the Franco rig. I just want to show you the art that we have here. First thing is the neck. Straightforward enough. I'm going to hide that now. And I'll show you the torso overlay. This is the torso skin. And lastly, we have the torso underlay. Now, I'm going to connect that to the composite and go under my drawing mode, and I'll show you that it's the exact same symbol. So once again, we have our overlay, we have our underlay, and we have our skin color here. Okay, I'm going to connect all three to my composite. Overlay, the skin, and then the underlay. And this is basically what it looks like here. Alright, you can kind of just see it. If I move the overlay here, you'll be able to see the skin. Hang on, let's just make sure it's set to, yeah, okay. I'm going to give it pegs. That's Control-Shift-P. And that's the underlay there. And that's that underlay there. Okay. So now that we understand the setup for the torsos, let's move on to the collar. So here is the collar. And I'm going to connect the collar here. And I'll show you inside the art what our collar looks like, if I can find it. So a good way to find your art if you're missing it is clicking this field guide and then checking the layers. Alright, so here we have the line art, which we're using as the collar itself. We have a cutter. This is the skin cutter, and underneath or over on top we have the neck cutter. Alright, so we have three cutters here. I'm actually going to reorganize the art here so it makes a little bit more sense. So I'm actually going to use this neck cutter, Control X, and I'll put it on the underlay here. And for this overlay, Control X, and I'm going to place it in the color art. So we have color art and we have underlay art. Two cutters, excuse me, two cutters, and on the line art we have our collar. Now we have to copy and paste this collar a couple of times. Control C, Control V, and we're going to do the exact same thing as we have here with the torso. So Control C, Control V. So now I have the three collars. The first collar, I'm going to go under the drawing and I'm going to set it to the line art to only reveal the line art. The second collar, I'm only going to reveal the color art. And I'm going to actually name this, I think this is the neck cutter. I just want to make sure. Okay, so this is the neck cutter here. So I'm going to name this collar neck cutter. And this is the final collar. And I'm going to name this I don't know what this is. I guess this is the shirt cutter. Okay. And this collar, we can just call it collar art. Alright. So all these three will correlate with my drawing. So I have my color art, I have my neck cutter, and I have my shirt cutter here. Okay, so after that, I'm going to highlight it all, Control-Shift-P to give it its own peg. Now, here's the fun part. We go into our node library, and we find our cutter. There it is. Excuse me. I'm going to use a couple of them, so I'll just pull 3 along here. The first thing we want to cut is our neck. Now let's find our neck. And I'm going to hide the torso for now, just for clarity's sake. So to disable, you hit D to disable. And to ableize, you hit A. And I'll go ahead and give that a peg as well. Alright, so we have our neck basically on top of all 3 of our art layers here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the neck by holding Alt and sliding this node cutter in here. And I'm going to take the neck cutter, which is here. This is why it's important to name your symbol so you can easily locate what you actually need to find. So the neck cutter, I'm going to take here and cut the neck. Alright. And I'm going to layer this overlay layer on top of the neck cutter, like so. Okay, so once again, this overlay layer is basically going on top of that neck cutter and collar. Now I want to control this collar and this collar neck collar and this collar shirt cutter with one master peg. So I highlight the 3 collar art and hit Control P. Now this is my master peg now. So I'll put collar, master peg. You can call it parent peg if you want. And this essentially will move all of them at the same time. Kind of looks like a sandia, watermelon. Alright, so there we have that. Now, I'm going to show you guys the torso. So what we want to do is we want to cut this art here using a shirt. So I'm going to locate the art of the collar here. I'm going to find one of my cutters and I'm going to hold Alt and slide it in. Once again, whatever you want to be affected goes on the right, and whatever you want to use to cut this collar goes on the left. So in this case, I want to use, let's say the skin. So I'm going to run a line from the bottom here all the way over to there. Now this is inverted now, so I'm just going to hit the yellow square and hit inverted, and then that does that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use the underlay because that has all the art involved in it. Sorry. Alright, so now we have our collar, and whenever it goes past the shirt, it gets cut. Alright. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to fix this here. Now this is where the color overrides occur. So I'm going to go down here and click or type down color, and the color override is this brick icon. It basically means, yes, you can cut me, but there are some rules. So we'll slide in the rule book, and inside the rule book properties, we're going to click the yellow box here, and we're going to say, okay, right now the torso has 2 colors. The torso has this dark green line and it has this normal green line. And I want to only use this green line to cut my collar. So I'm going to go to render selected colors only. And then on the drop down menu, do the same, render selected colors only. And then I'm going to locate my shirt fill. And I'll bring it over here. And that's going to cut using only the shirt fill. Now you might ask, why is this line not cutting right into the shirt fill? It's because the shirt fill itself is a line artwork, which we will have to fix. So if you go under the shirt fill, under this drawing here, and you go under this, this is a line art. Basically what you're seeing right here is the fill goes right up until that blue line there. So on the camera view, that blue line is basically where the fill ends. So for example, if you keep an eye out on the blue line there, I'm going to select just a line and I'll delete it and you'll see what happens. See where that fill ends? Okay, so that's where the fill ends. What we have to do is have the fill end here at the base so that this part cuts only until the edge of that green line. So all we have to do is, using the black arrow tool, select it all, go under Tool Properties, and we're going to convert pencil to brush. This is only for the color art layer here, like for the underlay shirt. So click that, and now it's a brush fill, but we still see that line. So the next step you want to do is you want to flatten it. So it's kind of like in Adobe Photoshop. You still have the bunches of layers, so now you have to flatten it. So the minute I flatten it, actually, sorry. You have to deselect, select it again, then flatten. The minute you flatten it, now my edge is actually down here. So if I go to my camera view, that should work. Okay, so once again, all I did was I took this piece of art and told it to only use the fill of the green. Because the fill of the green ended up in the middle while it was a line art, I converted it to a fill. And I took away the line art. All right. Now the next step is we're going to have to figure out how we want to hide this cutter up here. So I'm going to move the neck up just so you guys can see it a little bit better. And this shirt cutter here, I'm actually going to use to hide. I'm just going to disable that. So I'm going to use this shirt cutter to cut this torso overlay so that I can show the skin underneath. So if I disable this, you know, he's naked, but I basically want to show only this layer. So I actually want to cut this overlay art layer here to show the skin underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this skin layer into a cutter here, and the shirt cutter. I know that I'm going to use the shirt cutter to cut with that, and I'm going to plug that in here. And you know what, actually I'll cut the overlay shirt, so I'm going to run that on top. And then that basically cuts the overlay shirt and reveals the underside of the torso skin. Okay, now once again, we're getting that line here because of the artwork. So once again, if you want to correct it, you just basically convert it to fill. So it's actually on this layer here. So basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of art, Control C, go under my neck cutter here. I'm going to hit Control V, and I'm going to take all of this and convert lines to fill, select it all again, and I'm going to flatten it. After I flatten it, I'm just going to delete that. So now it should be a clean cut. The last piece of business is to try to get the neck to flush itself onto the flesh, basically. So how you do that is you introduce another cutter. So I'm actually going to go cutter, pull it in, and I'm going to cut the neck. So we locate the neck, which is here. And I am going to cut the cutter. You can do that. You can cut a cutter by holding Alt, sliding it in. And I am going to use the fleshy part. Actually, you know what? We don't even need the cutter. Sorry. Let's do this instead. So on the neck, here's the neck. I've actually already separated the overlay underlay piece. So this is the overlay piece, and this is the underlay piece. So to create the overlay piece, you're simply copying the whole piece, going into your overlay piece, pasting it and erasing it. Now you'll notice when you do erase it, what you want to try to do is taper the lines so that it doesn't look like this. Oops. So it doesn't look like this. Where can I select that? So the lines don't basically go over on top. That should be sent to the top. Oops, sorry, I'm trying to select that. All right, so what you don't want is that. Because what you'll get is it's going to ride, it's going to expose this fleshy part, but you want it to be flush. So the idea is that when you do bring this in, you adjust the line so it tapers like this. And again, you can use the pencil editor tool to do that. Pencil editor tool. So using the pencil editor tool, you can basically highlight and using your arrow tool, go up and down. You can also just manually adjust. And there's this one last thing I want to show you guys under the tool properties is sometimes you're going to get flat edges. So simply use the black arrow tool, go under tool properties, and on the tips, just go round. And then that'll round it off nicely. All right, so we have our overlay and we have our underlay art. What we're going to do is we're going to sandwich that in our node view here. So I'm going to hit Control C and Control V. Oops. Control C, Control V, and I'm going to attach that behind the shirt skin. Here's the shirt skin here. Attach that behind the shirt skin, and I'm going to attach the neck to the same neck peg. And if you want, you can create another peg to wedge underneath. And what you're going to do is on the overlay neck, you're only going to expose the overlay line work, which is that. So now when you move the neck, it looks like that. Okay. So that's basically how you do overlays with color overrides and shoulders and necks. Good luck.